Hi guys, welcome to the Liberty Bunker. Herd immunity. This is the UK government's plan for tackling this virus, which is currently sweeping the globe. Now, what is herd immunity? Herd immunity is essentially the theory that, if enough of the population have immunity to a disease, then that disease will not effectively spread through the population. You're basically disconnecting people. So if person A has a disease and person B is susceptible to that disease, you basically have a buffer of enough people between them that hopefully those two people don't meet. How much of the population needs to be immune to this virus for essentially herd immunity to be effective? We don't know, because we don't know the R0 number of this current virus. But we know things like measles. Measles is a highly contagious disease. You need a herd immunity threshold of about 92%, maybe more than 92%, to stop measles essentially passing through a population and spreading quite rapidly. Measles is very contagious. If you're talking something like standard flu, it's a lot less contagious than measles, so it only needs to be about a third, 33%, maybe slightly more than 33% of the population need to be immune to stop there being a widespread spread of standard flu through the population. We don't know the R0 number of this current virus, but judging by things I've looked at online, you're probably looking at something like 80%. It is obviously a lot more contagious than standard flu. You're looking at probably 75, 80%, maybe slightly more than that of the population will have to build immunity to it to stop the virus continuing to spread to those who don't have it. Now, I watched, as I think a lot of people did, watch the government live stream yesterday, Boris Johnson on YouTube, essentially saying this is the way the UK is going. On the face of it, when I first saw it, it seemed pretty insane to me. We can currently see what is happening in Italy, how overwhelmed the healthcare service is in Italy, and I don't really care who you are, the Italian healthcare service is superior, far superior to the NHS. So when it hits the NHS, which we're probably only 10 days, maybe 2 weeks away from that happening, it's going to be devastating. So the policy that the government are currently taking in the short term, this is going to cost lives. There's almost no other way of saying it. Doctors, healthcare professionals have said from Italy, lock your country, lock your cities down now, because we know with this virus, people tend to die from it about 15 days after contracting. So we're looking at there being big problems 14 days down the road, many people dying. Those people that will be dying in 2 weeks' time are contracting that virus today, tomorrow, the next few days. So if we did lock down, which is something I was expecting, I said in a previous video, I was expecting UK schools to close. Today would be the last day. I said they would close on Monday the 16th. They would close this Friday and not reopen on Monday. I was very much expecting that. We've seen that with Ireland. Ireland already closed its schools. Many European countries have closed their schools. The UK is not going down this road, which is something that did initially really surprise me. Yesterday I was thinking, is this really the right thing that the UK government are doing? There are some positive points to this. With these countries like Italy, like China, when they unlock, essentially, when Italy, it can't remain locked down forever. When you unlock these cities, the virus is very likely just going to spread again, because people will still have it in the system, unless you're barring everybody coming into the country, everybody going out the country, test everybody before they are, unlocked, allowed to leave their house. It's just going to happen again, and we're so far away from a vaccination being possible. We don't even know if a vaccination is possible. Everybody's talking about this magical vaccination. There's many diseases out there. We have no vaccination for the common cold, right? We don't even know, and this virus it looks like it mutates. We don't know how easily it mutates. As we're told, there's two strains, the L and the S strain. We don't know how easily it mutates, so they may create a vaccination. As soon as it comes out, maybe it's obsolete because it will just mutate again. We don't know. So the mythical unicorn of a vaccine is still a long way away, even if it's possible. So one of the benefits of what the UK government is saying, or what they're doing, is if we just have herd immunity, if we bear the brunt now, the next 6 months are going to be pretty rough with the methods that the UK government are going down. But we're not then waiting for this mythical vaccination, which may or may not happen. But more than that, probably the most critical thing, and whether the government have looked at this, this is the reason why they're doing it, and this is why I wanted to make this video, because it's, the mainstream media, medical professionals are all looking at this from the patient-saving aspect. on this channel, we kind of look more at the things people aren't talking about, and the things people are not talking about. Europe, the UK, America, we have big problems. I've done many videos on this. I think most of the long-term subscribers also agree with this sentiment. We have huge problems. The risk of a financial collapse is tremendous. You know, UK, America, and without even talking about the Eurozone, heavily indebted countries. When you look around Europe, Italy, you know, Greece, Spain, Ireland, Portugal, these countries were on the edge of collapse anyway. How long can you keep Italy closed before it goes bankrupt? Italy's on the verge of bankruptcy anyway, defaulting on its bond obligations. They can't keep the country closed for too long. The bondholders will lose faith, and then you have the buyer of last resort, which will be the ECB. We'll just have to QE print billions and billions. And once one falls, it'll be dominoes. If Italy fell, it will be Greece, Spain, Portugal, Ireland within days. They will just fall one after the other. Once the bondholders lose faith, and the only person buying bonds will be the ECB. The UK's decision is dangerous, and I think we will lose lives, because when this hits the NHS, you know, in Italy, what's happening at the moment, that when you get triaged at the hospital, essentially the doctors are deciding if you live or if you die, if you have comorbidity, if you have diabetes, if you are morbidly obese, if you're you know, a patient currently undergoing cancer treatment. They probably will treat you, but if you stop breathing, if you go into cardiac arrest, they don't have the resources, neither the resources in terms of machines, you know, ventilation machines, beds, or the manpower. They don't have the physical manpower. So when, you know, vulnerable people, if you're a smoker, you know, they can't really treat you, because more than anything, it's unfair. If you smoked your whole life and you've compromised, it's a horrible thing to say, but if you smoked your whole life and you've got a non-smoker there, same age, same everything's the same, but one's a smoker, one's not, the doctors are in a tough choice, but they have to prioritize the person that doesn't smoke. It's as simple as that, because they've got a much higher chance of bouncing back. We know that. It's an unfortunate thing to say, but that's the realities of the situation we're in. So people will die with the decision the UK government are making. In about 10 days, 2 weeks, we're going to see the NHS swamped, and the doctors will be making difficult decisions on who lives and who dies. If we locked down now, we probably could prevent that, because it suggests something like the average person who dies from coronavirus dies something like 15 days after contracting the virus. So we know this big problem's coming in about 2 weeks' time. There's not much we can really do to stop that. If we wanted to stop it, we needed to lock down days ago. We've sort of gone off the cliff edge now. So even if we lock down tomorrow, the 2 week thing is still going to be a nightmare. But the people who are going to be in hospital dying in 2 weeks' time, they're contracting the virus today, tomorrow, the day after, because we've got this like sort of 15-day window from when you contract it to statistically when you're probably going to die. And we know the NHS isn't as good as the Italian healthcare system, so it's going to be a nightmare. When you get a big spike in people coming into the NHS at one point, that's when the mortality rate of this virus goes up, because you can't treat everybody. The machines, like the ECMO machines and the ventilation machines, you know, some of these machines, there's only 15 in the whole country. These machines that they're crying out for, there's only 50, and they're all used. So when people go in, the doctor's like, okay, well, if we had this machine, we could save you, but unfortunately we don't have the machine. So it's going to be cutthroat, it's going to be horrible, it's going to be pretty brutal. But that's the nature of this game, and this is the nature of the way this thing's unfolding. Now, the bond crisis is a big one, because if the UK gets through this, you know, we just bear this 6 months, and other countries are still facing this lockdown. They lock, they unlock, the virus spreads, they relock again. Countries like Italy, Greece, they really are looking at going off the edge of a cliff. Now imagine a bond crisis, which is pretty apocalyptic anyway. We've never seen like, you know, modern developed economy, something like European nations going through. Greece has to an extent, but you know, we not with the size of the debts they are these days. This is a pretty apocalyptic situation to be going into, and especially the connective nature of the Eurozone. If one country topples, they may all topple. Germany will just have to go back to the Deutschmark and to hell with everybody else. I think that's the only way out of it for Germany, unless they want to sync with everybody else. Whether the UK government, whether Dominic Cummings, whether Boris Johnson has seen the nature of the bond crisis, the financial crisis come in and just accept the pain now and we get away with it. I mean, say we go through the next 6 months, it's pretty painful. We get to 85% of the population being immune to the virus and we get through it. That puts the UK in a very good position. Economically, after that, it's, you know, the UK will really boom when these other countries are still waiting out for the unicorn vaccination, which may or may not come. We'll be back at full strength. We can, you know, be producing maximum economic output, and there will be a lot of countries that will need the support of the UK in that scenario. I think what I'm saying is this is very, very high risk. If this goes wrong, which there's a very good chance this could go wrong, you know, just so many people die more than anticipated. It's going to look very bad for Boris Johnson. You know, they could quite easily, we wouldn't have a Boris Johnson government by the summertime. If this goes wrong, if it goes right, it puts the UK in a very strong position, especially if we can avoid, you know, the financial collapse that could happen to some countries. So that's just the way I'm looking at the moment. Yesterday when I watched the Boris Johnson stream, it seemed insane, but maybe it's not that insane. Maybe they've looked at the numbers. Maybe they can see how real a bond crisis is. I don't know. We're stuck in this thing. Like, if we had just been had sound monetary policy over the last 10 years, if we'd gone into this crisis with interest rates at 6%, if we'd gone into this crisis running a budget surplus each year of £20 billion, we would have a lot more room to manoeuvre. We don't have that. We have our hands tied behind our back. You know, now interest rates are 0.25%. Before that, they were basically zero anyway. We've got hundreds of billions of pounds of QE already done. We've gone into it weak. We've gone into it with a huge budget deficit each year. We've gone into it weak. So that's hindsight. It is what it is. We're going into this incredibly weak. The risk of a bond crisis is very real. That's just the only thing I can take away from what Boris Johnson is recommending. It seems a high risk strategy. In about 2 weeks' time, it's going to really flare up, and you know the NHS almost certainly will be swamped, and it's probably going to make the Italian situation look like just a day at Disneyland, just because, you know, the NHS is basically always on its knees. It's pretty much always at the state of falling apart. You know, the medical professionals, the doctors and nurses, they do an amazing job. You know, so much unpaid overtime that, you know, doctors and nurses are putting in just to keep the system ticking over. There's zero spare capacity in the NHS system, so it's not going to be good. But if we can avoid a bond crisis, I don't know. It's a high-risk strategy. That's all I've really got to say on the thing anyway. But it's that's the only analysis I can take away from it. Maybe the bigger picture is, I don't know. If that's what the government have seen, there, basically all I can deduce from this is either the government are very, very intelligent or they're very, very stupid. And time will tell which one it will be. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one. Jason from Liberty Bunker signing off, and I'll see you in the next video.